Welcome back to Bombastic Nation and Ting and Ting and Ting. Back with some more vibes for you. I'm Mr. Giant, you know what I mean? And another suggestion, listen, man, you guys been suggesting some cool stuff. Hit me up in the comment section and let me know things that you think I should react to, stuff that I could learn from and I could learn from, and you could teach me, and other people could learn from and could be taught. You know what I mean? The vibe that go on and stuff. This one is called The Difference Between Arab Countries by Geography now. So, just like every other country, there's differences in the countries, but that's cultural and that's political and that's systemic. Always remember, when we say differences, we mean most of it is what we are taught, what is learned. We're still just human beings, and we could celebrate our differences. So, I ain't going to babble on too much. I'm going to get on into this here. The difference between Arab countries. Let's YouTube and simmer. Let's see what the brethren Barb have to say. I think that's what he called Bart. Bart, I think, yeah. All right, man. Let me know.
Hey everyone, so as you know, we are working on the next few country episodes, which means this is going to have to be a filler week. This week, I was given a topic by you guys that I thought was pretty interesting. What are the differences between Arab countries?
Let's hear it, bro.
Arabs are the same? No, they're not. Before we get into this though, just want to give a huge shout out to Squarespace for being our sponsor for this episode. A lot of you have probably heard about them, you know exactly what they are, and we are really thankful that they are sponsoring Geography Now. We'll talk more about them later. So anyway, I am not Arab, and I feel like the best way to go about this tricky topic would probably be to have an Arab with me in this episode. So you guys remember my Arab friend from Egypt and the Egypt episode, Mohab? Hello. Nice. Good to be here. Now, there are a lot of countries that either speak Arabic or have Arabic as a national or recognized language. However, in this episode, we're going to do the 22 nations of the Arab League.
These are the countries that actually get to call the shots for the most part in the Arabic area.
Before we start, little disclaimer.
Yes, everything we're going to be discussing in this episode might be a little bit touchy-feely. There's no universal agreement.
A lot of the stuff we're about to say is also kind of based off of what you guys, the Arab geographies, have said to me. All right, cool.
I say let's begin.
Yeah.
Algeria. Algeria is a Maghreb country, not Maghreb.
Yes, and you can't really mention Algeria without talking about soccer. To the point where when these countries play soccer together, things get heated up, and that's an understatement.
Huge rivalry. Size-wise, they are the largest country in all of Africa, and they are the largest Francophone nation in the Arab world. They were under the French at one point. And they speak just like French people. Like
100%.
Almost.
Culture-wise, Algeria is the home of what we know as Rai music. Algerian folk music that became a phenomenon with people like Chef Khaled, Chef Mami.
Bahrain. Now, I have been here.
Bahrain.
And the impression I got is that Bahrain is kind of like the secret Dubai of the Middle East, and it's also kind of like Saudi Arabia's girlfriend.
They don't have any rivalry with any other countries. They are very stable economically.
Very open-minded and liberal. They even appointed a Jewish female ambassador to their government, which is pretty much unheard of for pretty much any Arab country.
They have the money, but they're not really being cocky about it.
Yeah.
They do know that they have the money, so they conduct themselves in that way.
Mohab, what do you know about the Comoros?
Yeah.
Yeah, very few people in the Arab world know anything about the Comoros Islands. They are the smallest nation in the Arab League with only about 800,000 people. They actually speak 3 languages, Comorian, French, and Arabic. They do have a little bit more of like a black East African culture applied to them.
Hey.
That would be like this.
No, I want to go visit there. It's an island.
Kind of cousin that you never met growing up.
Djibouti. Yeah, the Arabs don't really pay too much attention to Djibouti either, partially because only about 5% of the country identifies as Arab, even though they speak Arabic. Basically, they're known as being Ethiopia's only access to the sea.
Djibouti would be the country that shows up to the party, sits quietly, sips his drink, leaves early because he has work early in the morning, like a wallflower of sorts.
Yeah, he's like the wallflower of the Arab party. And now we reach Egypt.
Oh yeah.
Egypt is basically the hub, the godfather of the Arab world, the most populated one with over 100 million people.
Because that's the problem. That's the problem. So 100 million of Egyptians live in a little under 5% of the land.
Heavily concentrated.
Very much so. So this is the thing about Egyptians. When the revolution started in 2011 and people were dying in the streets, guess what? You find that people are just making memes and jokes about it because this has been always the way Egyptians cope with sadness and tragedy.
Through dark comedy.
Dark comedy. You can imagine soccer in Egypt exactly the same way you would imagine soccer in Brazil. We might not have a soccer on the flag like in Brazil, but it's like people religiously follow their teams.
If the Arab world was a high school, Egypt would kind of be like the really popular kid, maybe not the smartest or richest, but
The most popular. Yes.
Everybody's paying attention. Iraq. Probably won't find too many Iraqi people outside of Iraq. They kind of generally stay in their country, except for the ones that are not Arab, like Kurdish people or Assyrians, right?
Yes. Yeah. The country is known for having the heaviest population of Shia
in the Arab world.
In the Arab world, I would say that most Arabs, we don't have a whole lot of intake from that country, which is very unfortunate. They know Iraq. It's not a small country by any means.
Recent controversies are kind of like, it's just like that's all they're known for. I guess you could kind of say Iraq is kind of like the goth kid of the Arab world.
That's a very accurate depiction.
Jordan, the one everybody kind of wants to be friends with, right? Yeah. Pretty much every Arab country can be friends with them. They're kind of like the Wisconsin of the Arab world.
That's kind of like a bucket list for me, Jordan.
There is no way on earth you're going to be able to differentiate between the different dialects. Both countries would be kind of offended when you say this because they tell you, oh, no, we do not sound the same.
It's like when you say the Australians and the New Zealand Kiwis sound the same, they would be like, no, we don't. Kuwait. They kind of went on like a bad blind date with Iraq and they just really don't want to talk about it anymore. So Kuwait is kind of like the rich older sister who is part of like a very exclusive country club. Really hard to be a Kuwaiti citizen, even if you're born there, and even if you are born, it only applies if your dad is Kuwaiti.
And then you have 20 years to be staying in the country, and I guess...
Yeah, you have to prove that you've rendered service, and what else? You have to speak Arabic.
Muslim.
Most likely Muslim.
It would be that fancy schmancy country club in Bel Air.
Exclusive country club of the Arab world.
Very much so.
Yeah. Next one, Lebanon.
Party!
Lebanon is the party capital of the Arab world.
It really is.
Yes. They are the...
Had a lot of Lebanese come move to the island. And I actually had a couple of friends that were Lebanese. They're pretty fun people. They are. They're pretty fun people. But you're right. They're party people.
Is the party capital of the Arab world.
It really is.
Yes. They are the most religiously diverse nation in all of the Arab world. There's like 18 recognized religious communities, and their government system even requires leaders from each community to represent them.
I'm not trying to be offensive, but Lebanese people, I've met so many Lebanese people, and they are delightful, but they have a little bit of toot. Let's just put it that
Attitude?
way. Yes, they do. They provide some of the finest, most prolific singers of any Arabic country. Arabic, French, English, it's all mixed up. Balghanoug, Fattoush, Labna.
Oh my gosh.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Like Arab pizza.
Okay,
Man, I gotta eat some of that stuff.
I have yet to see, on a scale from 1 to 10, a 7 Lebanese person. I have not, they're all 9s and 10s, but they're just really, really attractive, good-looking people.
Libya.
Yeah.
As mentioned in the Libya episode, they're the only Arab country that kind of speaks Italian-ish, because they were under the Italians at one point. So, I don't know, I mean, what do you think about Libyan people?
Really kind, really understanding. They love to laugh, believe it or not, just much like Egyptians. They like to learn the Egyptian dialect. Some of them actually nail it. And they're just good people.
It's just unfortunate, kind of like Iraq, just unfortunate circumstances have kind of...
I've met some Libyans. They just chill.
It's not talked about too much either. They aren't a super popular one, but one thing that they're known for is that they take Islam very seriously. They're pretty conservative.
They are deemed also to be one of the most countries that would be memorizing like the whole Quran.
Oh yeah,
a huge portion.
Quran memorizers
and Islamic poets as well.
Intellectuals that live in the sparsely populated, sandy areas with lots of wind. That's probably how they get inspired to write poetry. I don't know.
You know that one Shaolin monk just sitting on a rocking chair and just writing. That's really what Martin means.
The quiet monk sitting alone in the desert. Morocco. This is the most...
I know a Moroccan that live right here in this city.
Arab world. They're Arabic. Even if you're a native speaker, it's very, very hard to understand.
They have the weirdest accent, right?
Incredibly strong.
It's kind of like what Chile is to the Spanish speaking world.
Correct.
Yeah,
that's dead on. I mean, they are considered an Arabic country, but are they really
So Mahab, if the Arab world was a family, how would you kind of place Morocco?
Comfortable, financially comfortable uncle stands up in dinner and gives that big speech. You couldn't really understand what he was talking about.
He's like the guy that shows up. He's like, "Hey, I'm moving on here to home." You're like, "Oh, okay."
Oh, cheers, cheers, cheers.
Yeah. Oman.
So when you say
Oman.
it's
Actually had a friend that went to the university down the street here from Oman.
who's really, really wise and really likes to keep things traditional. Like just culture and family.
Yeah, he was big on family.
Correct. I would say it could be easily the friendliest or the second. No heat, no fights, nothing.
Yeah, they're just chilling.
Untouchable. Arab countries don't want to go in and like cause any trouble. When you go there, it's kind of like a travel back in time. Like the people's
Many of the cities.
That's why I would love to go check it.
Correct. I would say if it ain't broken, why fix it?
Yeah, Oman, don't fix it. It doesn't need to be fixed. Nope. Palestine, oh boy. It's a little confusing because they are still considered part of the Arab League, but in terms of actual real legislation, it's kind of like in a limbo state, so it's weird. Yeah, it's kind of like a lot of Palestinians have told me that like a lot of Arab countries kind of stand in solidarity with Palestine, but they're kind of careful not to invest too much into it because two things, they kind of want to keep Palestine as that poster child.
People do not have the resources or the time to just get out of their own homes and go somewhere else to mind someone else's problem. You can't use my washer dryer unless I actually finish using it. And as luck would have it,
Otherwise, in terms of Palestinian culture and everything, I was told they invented kanafe, my favorite Middle Eastern thing. I don't know, Wahab. When you meet a Palestinian person, what do you think?
how did you get here? So seriously, I'm not even joking. They have travel documents, but they don't have passports because it's not a state. So you immediately just think, okay, there must be a story. Every single time you meet a Palestinian outside of Palestine, more often than not, when they leave, they just immediately seek asylum.
Qatar. When I say Qatar, what are some things that immediately pop in your head?
I'm not
Qatar.
talking about the people. I am not talking about the people. Immediately, the two huge topics that come to mind would be the Muslim Brotherhood and Algeria network. I don't know what happened over the past few years, but it's not one of those topics that you watch any Arabic channel or Egyptian media handling the topic of Qatar with grace.
It's funny because, Qatar has like the highest expat ratio out of any country in the world at like almost 80, I think over 80%. So it's actually kind of rare to find a native Qatari citizen. Like, they're all hiding in the penthouse suites of the buildings. It's like
Very exclusive.
you can't find them. It's so hard.
I had a friend that used to teach English there.
2022. I actually really liked Doha when I visited. I'll say, like, I loved
time there.
it. Was great. Like, Souk Waqif looked really cool. It's a really cool spot you can visit. Yeah, but at the same time, I wasn't immersing myself with the entire underlying spectrum of politics and what's going on. It's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But I just liked my stay. That's all I can say.
Well, good.
Saudi Arabia.
I have a lot of friends from there too. Went to the university up here.
In their name. Basically, when I was there, a lot of assumptions I had were kind of dispelled. You can check them out in the video here. But basically, to outsiders and most Arabs, Saudi Arabia is kind of seen the same way. It's like money, oil, and religion, right? Yeah.
I mean, it's really, really the hub of Islam.
It is.
Al-Madinah al-Munawwara, Mecca, they have al-Shahada, La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah, on their flag.
You said that so fast.
Yeah, it's...
However, you also do kind of notice that they are slowly trying to progress into the 21st century.
They have been passing laws over the past 10 years.
What is that going to look like? We'll see. We'll see. Yeah.
Time will tell.
Yeah. Somalia. This is probably the blackest Africanist Arab country, right?
It really is.
Yeah. In terms of culture, they're I don't want to say similar to Ethiopia and Eritrea, but they do have like similar food.
I'm not trying to offend anyone, I promise. It's just a little bit funny fact. Growing up in Egypt, Somalians or the word Somali would kind of connotate the butt of most of the jokes in Egypt.
Oh, so
it's but it's an endearing. It's not a racism thing. We're not
Mr. Egyptian.
Very rich in culture, though. Very colorful, vibrant traditions and customs. Yeah.
Their colors are insane.
Oh yeah, Somali people are very colorful. Sudan.
Sudan had that thing going on.
Manute Ball.
They have very, very. First of all, it's the borderline. Yeah. We share the same border.
Close with Egypt.
Yeah. They were under an alliance. At some point, they were actually the same exact country.
Anything that happens with the Nile in Egypt will affect Sudan. So
and vice versa.
Think
about it this way: you have a brother and you love them so much, but you don't have a problem having a fist fight with them from time to time.
Syria. Okay, Mohab.
I have a lot of friends from Syria too. They migrated to the island.
So you can
Still talk to
understand the country
one
is
of
just
the ladies
contributing
to this
a lot
day.
of dark black terrorism.
Like, again, they didn't ask for it, but
No,
it's
they
just
didn't.
kind of what happens. Syrians are kind of like the people that show up and they have the craziest stories in the group. Pretty much, that's how you would probably, yeah.
And everyone cried.
But if you just meet them as people, I'm sure they're just people.
Yeah, they are.
There's always a story.
They are. Had a couple of friends.
Tunisia, the artsy person of the Arab world, they were voted the freest.
When I was on the island growing up, one of the guys I used to run around with was Syrian. You know, the last name was Batik. And chill. I mean, he kind of immersed himself in the culture. He was eating all the wild meat from there, you know, listen to the music. I mean, as a matter of fact, he's still living there, owns 2 stores there. You know, his sister is the one that I talk to a lot on Facebook. Still friends with them. They're really, really cool, chill people. You see, it's always coming back to chill people. It doesn't have anything to do with nationality and religion and customs and stuff like that. Once you meet people, unless they're like hardcore, then you chill with them. It's kind of like here, you know what I mean? I know a lot of people that go to church, and I'm cool with them. But then there's the hardcore ones that's all they want to talk about. You know what I mean? The humanity, just the human interaction, is always affected by the politics or the religion of things. But generally speaking, just people trying to live.
Country in the
All
Arab
of
world
us.
as well. Yeah, they're
Black,
known for
white,
having a lot
Arab,
of cool
Asian.
crafts. People know them for
Most
their
people just want to
carpets and
live.
their carvings. It's just like they love art.
When you mention Tunisia, what comes to mind, again, as an Arab? Algeria. Even though it's a completely different country, but there's so much similarity, and if you're not really well versed in history, you would not really know a whole lot of difference between the two countries.
French also speaking people, I believe. They speak French, right? Yeah.
They do.
Yeah. And they also have really good health care, which we explained in the Libya episode. Lots of Libyans go to Tunisia for health care. The UAE, United Arab Emirates. Now it's interesting because they're called the Emirates, but it's actually ruled by sheikdoms, 7 sheikhs. They kind of unified the whole country. So technically there's like no royal family, but I mean they're so super rich. It's kind of like a
It really is,
Yeah.
but not really. The country played their cards right. They know, they actually knew, and they still do know, at some point we're going to be running out of oil. So what else to do? Let's turn this into some modern marvel.
25 years ago, it was just like a fishing village on the desert.
Correct.
That's it. But then, like, late 90s, just like exploded. When I was there, it was very crowded. You know, so many people were trying to look at the Burj Khalifa, and you know, it's just like I couldn't find a single, like, what do you call it, like a souk, like a market. I couldn't find a single one. I went
Maybe
to
in other Emirates, but
Yeah,
not
yeah.
Abu Dhabi or Dubai.
Definitely not. No, it was like I couldn't find anything traditional. Everything was just glass and metal. In conclusion, what would you say?
I think it would be the rich VIP booth that you see at a club in Vegas.
And finally, Yemen. So most people kind of know this country as having a little bit of a conflict with Saudi Arabia. There is kind of like a Shia-ish minority. It's weird because they actually kind of have like almost the exact same population as Saudi Arabia, but in a smaller concentrated area.
Delicious food, very, very unique cuisine, very, very rich in protein. Steak, lamb, and chicken.
Cool thing about Yemen, they are definitely known for Socotra Island, which is all the plants are only unique to that one island. You can't find them anywhere else on Earth. It's a little hard to get there though because of the Somali pirates, but it's very cool. So Matt, what would you say Yemen is kind of like in the big, broad Arab family?
I would say someone very, very comfortable in the shadow.
They're like the emo kid.
Yes.
And that is it. All the 22 nations of the Arab League. Woohoo, we did it. High five. We probably offended half of everybody, but oh well.
Reading those comments are going to be fun.
Yeah. And before we go, I gotta do this little quick shout out for Squarespace. Thank you, Squarespace, for sponsoring this video. For those of you that don't know, although I'm pretty sure.
You know, kind of like at the ending he said, you know, he probably offended a lot of people. People just get offended so easy anymore. And that used to happen to me. I used to get offended easy until I realized life is too short. People are going to believe what people are going to believe. Especially if they're listening to others and not going to see for themselves. Or reading for themselves. And not reading from somebody that wrote a book from their culture who is writing it in their and his own cultural perspective. Read it from somebody who is from that other place. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like people come into the island and they expect this whole experience, not realizing that they know, but then I guess it's what the tourism industry sells them. You come and it's, oh yeah, calypso, ooh, and you know what I mean. But there's actual people living there, you know what I mean, and there's actual people having struggles, being happy, doing the same thing like here. The only thing that's different is the culture, sometimes the politics, and the geography. Now you could come and enjoy the people, the people. You know what I mean? And when you talk to them, you realize they're not that different. Because growing up on an island, especially a tourist island, I've met Russians, I've met Libyans, I've met Cubans, Americans came there, people from England came there, Germans. And I lived in the tourist area. I lived in the Grand Dance area. And then you just sit and you talk to these people, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute now. You know what I mean? With the exception of, like I said, the systems and the religions and stuff, they were just like me. They came there to have fun, to relax and thing, you know what I mean? Just like anybody would just want to find some place to relax and chill out and not have to worry about anything. I mean, and I'm not going to say when you travel, just go meet people, because you don't know who is affected by what the system they live under has told them. They don't know who is and how they're going to react towards you. You have to be careful. But generally speaking, just ordinary people are chill people. And I'm not expecting you to go into the middle of a tenement, or in some country and expect people to be chill there. Chances are they are, but there's always one bad apple or something in the mix. You know what I mean? But let's get to know each other, man. You understand? I want to know so much about so many different people and so many different places where they're from and everything, because I enjoy the culture, I enjoy the history. But I also want to keep in mind that they're just human like me, you know. So I could understand where they're coming from. But anyway, man, y'all take care of each other, all right? Cool runnings.